Oh my god, hey! I bring you another roundup of all of the latest gossip, stories, interesting debates going down on theatre Twitter this month. Hey, hey. So, last month I was talking about Falsetto Gate, which is still going on because the production hasn't really acknowledged it and they're hoping it will just quietly go away, which, spoiler alert, isn't going to happen. We also talked about Joe Suggs casting in Waitress. Since I made that video, he has now begun performances. Some footage of his performance has been posted promotionally. And the biggest takeaway is that his fans need to stop using their phones in the theatre during the show, because it's not okay. We also talked about Elaine Page talking through Evita at Regent's Park Open Air Theatre, and no further comment has been made by her at this time. So, this month, one of the biggest stories on theatre Twitter has been the Old Vic toilets very recently. So, the Old Vic have had this huge, accessible rebranding. All of the images from it look amazing. Their improved accessibility is awesome. That's really fantastic. And they've added a significant amount of toilets to their facilities. They had a whole big campaign about how the women's toilets were not acceptable. I think Joanna Lumley was involved. The controversy has come from the fact that rather than simply adding women's toilets, they have rebranded all of their toilets as gender neutral, gender non-specific toilets, which is a concept that makes people lose their minds. The issue here is that because one of the toilet facilities will still have urinals, that will still be a male-only toilet, and there will be no female-only toilets in the theatre, which a lot of TERFs on Twitter are not very pleased about because they think it's an attack on women's rights, when in reality people who've already used these facilities say it just means everyone doesn't have to queue as long for the toilet. I don't want to talk about this in depth because it's not about me. I, as a cis male, it's not really my issue. I am neither a woman nor a trans person, and this is a conversation that needs to be had with those groups. I think maybe to sidestep this, should theatres have one male-only toilet, one female-only toilet, and then a whole bunch of gender-neutral toilets? I love that as a concept, but do we need to toe a closer line in terms of male-female equality at the same time? It's very difficult. There's so many things you have to be careful of in the woke modern age. Interestingly, what I find really interesting is that the Young Vic has had gender-neutral toilet facilities for a while. There are many theatres that do. And I'm wondering what could possibly be the difference of the audiences at the Young Vic and the Old Vic. Huh. Another story that has been making the rounds on theatre Twitter, and this blew right up, is the return of Seyi Omooba. Now, earlier in the year, Seyi, who was part of the cast of Little Shop of Horrors at Regent's Park last year, she was due to be starring as Celie in The Colour Purple in Leicester, and historic Facebook posts she had made about her Christian attitudes towards gay marriage emerged. They were brought to light by Hamilton actor Aaron Lee Lambert, and a whole Twitter storm ensued asking if she stood by those opinions. In the light of that, she was fired from The Colour Purple and let go by her management. Now she has returned with the support of Christian Concern, a charity boosted by her own father, and she is suing everyone. The very first take I have about this is, if you want to break your way back into the industry that you love, and by all accounts I've heard she's very talented, suing everyone is not the best way to ingratiate yourself after suffering a fall from grace, because the only reason she isn't getting hired at the moment is she's making people uncomfortable. Despite regretting causing offence, she hasn't apologised, and I don't think she thinks she's done anything wrong. She doesn't believe that what she said was homophobic. It just discriminates against gay people because of their sexuality, but that's apparently not homophobic. Hey-ho, and she believes she's been discriminated against based on her religion. Some people have come to her defence on this one. Certainly a lot of religious people have defended her right to have the opinions that she does. And while there is a certain element of truth to that, I tend to think that in 2019, no one is entitled to a homophobic viewpoint. No one is entitled to use their platform as an actor on the internet to spread that. And even if she didn't actively discriminate against anyone she worked with, I think now is as good a time as any for her to learn that that's not an acceptable opinion for her to have. Her father, who advocates for conversion therapy for LGBT people, that is not an acceptable opinion to have, and better they learn that now rather than start suing everybody. Also this month in theatre Twitter, the Six UK tour cast has been sort of lightly criticised by a lot of the Six online fandom for not representing the same level of diversity as some of the other productions of the show have historically done. Now, I tend to think that there shouldn't be an exact diversity quota, because that's not really in keeping with the spirit of what the show is trying to do in terms of all ethnicities welcome, and we know from previous productions it's not sort of a historically visually accurate casting, which is awesome. The casting in Six, being diverse, has always been amazing, has always been very celebrated by fans. Now, in the cast, I think the biggest issue is Lauren Drew having been cast as Catherine of Aragon, who, sort of loosely based on or inspired by Beyonce, is traditionally played by a black actress. But I tend to think now that you have Courtney Bowman playing Anne Boleyn in London. In fact, in London there are only 2 white principal queens after the cast change at the moment, so the fact that there's going to be 4 on the tour, I think, rather than say you must all have 3 and 3 on all of these, I don't think that's the right idea. I think rather just leave it open, try and maintain a level of diversity. And I don't think because the Queen is inspired by Beyonce that she necessarily needs to be played by a black woman, because Anne Boleyn is inspired by Lily Allen, who is just like the whitest. Just the whitest. And anyone can play Anne Boleyn. Don't have to be white. Whatevs. Some other little fun tidbits that have been going on. There's 2 productions of Zorro, which is weird, because how often do you see a production of Zorro? It's like the buses of the London musical theatre scene is Zorro the musical. So Club 11 London and Take Two Theatricals are presenting a concert version of Zorro next year, the casting for which has already been announced and is going to be amazing, by the way. And the Hope Mill in Manchester are also staging an immersive production of Zorro. Both of these are very exciting announcements. What's interesting is they were announced on the same day, with uncannily similar artwork, and I'm scrolling through Twitter and seeing double, basically. It was the morning of the Prince of Egypt press launch, so there was some chatter about it at that. But yes, they were both announced on the same day. Rumour is that one of the parties had promised to embargo their press release until allowing the other one to post first, and then they went back on that promise and they didn't. They all posted it on the same day. Now, I'm not going to say that Katie Lipson promised Darren Bell she wouldn't post it straight away and then she did, but hey. Rumour, speculation. I don't know them personally, but also this month on Theatre Twitter, there is a production of Friends the Musical, which is different to Friendsical, and it's also going to be touring the UK. They're both touring the UK. They're both in the UK at the moment with slightly dubious timing. But the Twitter account for Friends the Musical has been lambasting Friendsical at every opportunity and sort of tweeting at people, don't confuse us with the 1-star rated Friendsical. Now, while I appreciate that if a show has had very negative press and has a similar title to yours, you do want to distance yourself from it, it feels like a very mean-spirited way to do so, and it doesn't feel like a way to endear audiences to your show. Friendsical doesn't seem to be suffering that much. Online, certainly, every time I see a posting about it, there's still hundreds of people in the comments section because it's a very attractive idea. People love the idea and people think it's going to be great. I'm not going to comment much further. If you want to know what I thought of Friendsical, you can go back and look at my Edinburgh Fringe thoughts. But power to them. And don't tweet nasty things about other productions if you're the official account for a production. Bad idea. Never going to go well. Last story I have for you today is about a fringe opera production done upstairs at the Gatehouse by an opera company called Theatre Loki. They have staged a production of Madame Butterfly. I'm already cringing because it was allegedly performed with Yellowface. This was brought to Theatre Twitter's attention by some audience members who said there are no Asian actors in the cast, but you have people in geisha makeup wearing kimonos, still staged in a Japanese context. If anyone wasn't sure, we shouldn't be doing Yellowface in 2019. The stage reported on this, and their comment section on Facebook was just filled with people saying, oh, but it's acting. In fact, one person commented, if a Japanese woman dresses as a geisha, isn't that whiteface? To which I took it upon myself to reply, no. There is no such thing as whiteface because white people have never been the victim of systemic racism. Someone else replied to me, are you joking? And I replied, no, I never joke about systemic racism. personally, and then they never got back to me, which is, I find that so frustrating on Facebook when ignorant people disappear and don't come back after you've roasted them. To conclude, don't do Yellowface in any production. Stage it in a different context. You can still do Mud and Butterfly, which is sort of based on a book that's got fairly entrenched racist themes and need to be overhauled in any production that you do. You can still do it. Stage it in a different context. Have some creativity about the whole thing. Don't just have English people wearing kimonos. And while we're on this subject, I would love it if the 2 different productions of Carousel that are being staged next year by all male creative teams could deeply consider how they are going to address the complicated themes of the show in terms of domestic abuse. I think if they could start thinking about that now, that would be a great idea on how to tackle that one, because I am concerned. Tune in again next month when Theatre Twitter will probably be losing its mind about a whole host of exciting new topics, and we'll see if falsettos have actually acknowledged that they're Jewish yet.